what these people were doing to these adults, young adults, and these kids. And that's what started. I don't know. I just couldn't get out. I couldn't get out of its way. I mean, I wasn't looking to change my career with the government. I mean, it just happened.
Hello and welcome to Center for Victory's podcast, Your Best Day Yet. At Center for Victory, we're here to help unlock, reinforce, and enrich relationships through personal and professional development. I am Kolb, Chief Adventure Officer here at Center for Victory, and I am excited about today's interview with Joseph Sweeney. He is a good friend of ours and is doing some amazing things, has a great story to tell, and I'm excited to share that with all of you. So, Joe, thanks for being here.
Hey, Caleb, pleasure, man. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. And I just want to read a little bit of a bio to get started here for you. So Joseph Sweeney serves as the co-founder, CEO, board chairman of the Asservo project. For over 29 years, Mr. Sweeney has devoted himself to serving his country and community as a former SWAT operator, bomb squad commander, and U.S. government explosive security specialist. He has traveled to over 10 countries, training, equipping, and supporting our allies, combating terrorism in their country. Most recently, he spent 3.5 years in Afghanistan until the pullout in 2021. While serving overseas, he had conversations with colleagues about child kidnapping and human trafficking. Once aware of the size and scope of this epidemic and the lack of effort to combat it, he felt he had to do something to help these people, and consequently, in 2017, the Asservo project was formed. They provide resources to assist law enforcement in investigations, cyber trafficking, and conduct awareness seminars to schools, communities, and build relationships with global organizations. Mr. Sweeney is also the former international director of the International Association of Bomb Technicians and Investigators and currently serves on its board of trustees. He also serves on the board of directors for the National Promise Coalition, an organization that works to help domestic violence victims. He's also a member in good standing with the National Tactical Officers Association. So again, Joe, thanks for being here. That is one heck of a resume, and I'm just excited to get the opportunity to talk to you today. I see you pretty much every week anyway.
Right.
And maybe we just start there with kind of how we met.
Sure, sure. No, boy, as you're reading that, it's like, man, we're coming up on 8 years here and thinking of all the things that have happened in the last maybe dozen years. But no, I mean, yeah, you and I now have known each other for, it's got to be pushing almost a year, I would say
Yeah.
9 months. We met, I'm trying to think of the months. It would have been probably in February or March. I think it was March. And actually, when I had the cancer surgery, I got diagnosed with cancer last year, esophageal cancer, which was
Mm-hmm.
pretty aggressive. So there was a surgery date in December, and then the complications from the surgery really set me back, and I had a ton of weight loss. And I got introduced to you guys, and they were like, "Hey, Adventures in Training, they help first responders and veterans and people that have these unique needs for rehab, and especially when your insurance runs out." So people were telling me about you guys, and I was a little hesitant to reach out. I said, "I don't know them." They're like,
Yeah.
"It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter, man. Call them up." And I think I get connected to your mom first, and then I met your dad on a Saturday the
Oh
next day.
yeah. That's that sounds about par for course. My dad
Yep.
coming in on a Saturday, and I'm sure he talked to you for at least an hour and a half.
Oh, we were
Uh,
there, and we got a workout in too. I was not leaving until we started the workout.
yes.
I was not prepared for it because my pain level at the time was like an 8 for like
Mm.
constant. And I was just glad somebody was listening because we just couldn't figure it out. And here it was my spine. I had 4 bad discs, but and I was telling him and he was drawing it out and he showed me around and then he's like, okay, you got some time? And yeah, I got time. And he's like, let's get one in. And that's how it started.
I love it. He is uh my dad's one of my heroes, man. He 77 years old, and for his birthday he wanted a new chainsaw, you
Yeah,
know. So he works out every
love it.
day at the office, and he talks about retiring, and he does. He's kind of a lot of what we do now. Nick and Jacob handle that, and
Sure.
but my dad still works over 40 hours every single week,
Oh yeah. Yeah.
and my mom as well. So
Well, and
yeah,
today,
it's
today I got tied up. I'm usually there on Fridays, but I just want to say, when I met you guys, it was all I could do to drive there, and I couldn't even make it 3 times a week sometimes.
yeah,
I just left my follow-up appointments. I put on over 20 pounds. My weights, I've gone up 2, 3 levels on all the weight stuff your dad's got me doing, and plus, I tell my doctors the treadmill that your dad has me doing and what I'm doing, and they look at me in amazement, like how are you doing a 24 degree for 40 minutes?
yeah.
Listen, I've been working with this group, So anyway, it's been a blessing, and that translates right to the Asservo project. I wouldn't be able to continue to doing what I've done if it wasn't meeting with you guys and of course my surgeons, because I got a clean bill of health now.
I that's amazing. I mean, that's a great testament, and uh, it's a you're off today. I talked to Jacob. He's like, yeah. Joe said he wouldn't be in on Friday. He's like, well, I'm doing an interview with him, so I think we'll give him the pass on that one.
There we go. Good, because I do hear about it.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, let's kind of I'd like to just hear your story, really how growing up in Pittsburgh and kind of just your career development. And I think it's just so interesting,
Sure.
just from your bio and learning about the Asservo project. But how did you what led you to get into, the public service realm in the first place?
Yeah, wow, that's a good question. I'm born and raised in Pittsburgh. I'm a local guy and still live here. I still live in Pittsburgh. And I grew up in Hazelwood, inner city, kind of a rough neighborhood. Um, but I mean, I don't know, we had a good childhood. I mean, we didn't have a lot, but I think back in those days when you didn't have all the tech we have now, parents were, I mean, they raised you, right? Because there was nobody else except the schools. You relied on education, and the parents raised you. But we always had that instilled in us, what's right and wrong. And I
Mhm.
think that was from an early age. But I went to Central Catholic. My parents somehow pulled that off, and I used to work there after school to work the
Yeah.
tuition. And but I got a good education there. It was a good place for me to be at the time. I think it kind of gave me some insights on life and that. And I went to college. That didn't work out so well, but I learned a lot there. I got
Yeah.
tossed out of school twice. My wife makes fun of me about it, but I still was just trying to figure out my path. And I'd worked construction for about 10 years. I worked with a couple companies and loved it. I learned all the trades. And just one day, a friend of mine said, "Hey man, the police are hiring. You ever consider being a cop?" And I said, "I actually have. I always thought that'd be a pretty cool job."
Yeah.
So I took the test and I scored really well on it. But there was a hiring freeze on it. So a couple years went by. I ended up getting a job at the county jail as a corrections officer. Uh, and I was only there a year when the city called, and that's what started my law enforcement career. I was with Pittsburgh PD for a little less than 12 years.
Yeah.
Most of my career, I was assigned to the SWAT team and bomb squad.
how
And
did how did you I mean, how did you get into that I guess demographic? How did you get involved with the SWAT team and the bomb squad at the Pittsburgh PD?
yeah, good question. In the academy, you get all the units come in. So you're learning what the police force is, right? Not just
Mhm.
patrol, what you're learning, but investigations, narcotics, SWAT, all of them come in and talk to you. So I remember the commander at the time, he come in and talked to us on the SWAT side. And really you can't get in those units usually without at least having 4 years on the job. You
Mhm.
don't get transferred. You got to work those uniform because you need to learn. And man, I just thought, man, that's a pretty cool job.
Yeah.
But what happened was, so once we graduated, I worked out in Homewood. I was a Zone 5, and at that year they had a massive retirement in the city. They had a buyback pension and 3/4 pension for the police officers. So I think like I think we had almost 1,800 cops when I was on there,
Wow.
1,600,
Yeah.
1,800, and like 400 or 500 signed up to retire at one time. So they had a massive shortage,
Yeah.
not only on the streets but in these other units. And I had had some experience in some explosives training in the reserves and things like that. I was an ROTC at college,
Yeah.
contracted. So I had a little bit of a background with some of that. And I happened to run into the commander of the SWAT team on a call in Homewood one time, and we were just chatting, and he says, "Yeah, we're going to have to backfill some things, and we're looking around any interest." And I said, "Yeah, I got an interest." And literally, it was 2 years I got transferred, and that usually never happens. It was only
Yeah.
because of those retirements that it happened. So once I was on SWAT, it was all one unit. We had roughly 25 guys, roughly. And out of the 25, there's about five or six are also bomb technicians.
Okay.
So these retirements, these folks were leaving. So then they come back to me. I was on SWAT about a year, and they're like, "Hey, any interest in being a bomb technician? It's a 5-week program down in Huntsville, Alabama with the Army and the FBI." And I'm like, "Yeah, send me down." And that happened. Caleb, there was no plan here. It was just opportunities that presented themselves, and I took it. I took advantage.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, I just never said no.
Yes, yeah.
Crazy.
Being ready for those opportunities, and sounds like a little bit of being in the right place at the right time. And
For sure. For
um
sure.
I don't know if I've ever told you this. We have a guy that went through our program. He was a translator in Afghanistan. And he's uh, came to the U.S., started working with the Pittsburgh PD, and is now just last year went through the bomb squad training in Alabama. And it wasn't until you said the training was in Alabama that I connected that he was just there and is kind of following that path. So I'll have to connect you guys sometime.
Oh, yeah. Is he with Pittsburgh?
Yeah, he's got a great story too.
Yeah.
And yeah, just a great guy. And we love working with the police and military because they're always on time and they don't miss any sessions. And he's just a great guy and has gone through our program twice. But
Yeah, definitely. I like to talk with him.
so all right, so then you started. Now you're on the SWAT, the bomb squad for
Yeah.
Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
And
That was about 10 years.
what was that like? What was your first call? So, it's a 10-week training program, you said?
Well, for the bomb technicians, it's five to
5
start.
weeks. Okay.
Basics, five. And then you have recertification every 18 months to 3 years. You have to go back and get recertified.
Right. Okay.
Now, with that training, then there's post-blast training, advanced post-blast training. So you go to these other schools by the FBI and the ATF and the Army. I got sent to weapons of mass destruction school, right? Because of
Hmm.
9/11 and things that started there. I went to underwater explosive recovery. So I went to a dive school and then an advanced dive school, and then I went to the underwater explosive recovery school. So I
Okay.
had underwater training there, and I did a lot of diving. I dove under one of the USNS Comfort. It was based in Baltimore. We were doing an anti-terrorism training. I was with Homeland Security then. I don't want to jump ahead, but
No, yeah, this is great.
we would go down and we would plant the training limpet mines underneath the hull of the ships,
Hmm.
training the local teams that were tasked with searching these harbors, right? So pretty cool. I mean, it was a pretty cool gig.
Wow. So, from there, so you're like, how many calls a year? I mean, how many calls are you getting?
Well,
Uh,
for the SWAT team, it varied in the bomb squad. I mean, man, it's been a while now. I left the city in 2003 and went to Homeland Security, but
yeah.
um, I'd say on average there, and it was tough. I mean, the SWAT calls, I'd say we'd probably average at the time. You might do three a month,
Hmm.
actual formal SWAT operations, right?
Yeah.
And then you might do none a month, and then you might do five a month. It was crazy. They're a lot busier now, I think, than we used to be, because now there's a more formal procedure when SWAT's to be notified than when we were there. It was more like when it hits the fan, call SWAT.
Right. Right.
But we were busy. I mean, and you think amongst those calls, which I'd say an average were three a month, sometimes more. And then you also had your day-to-day stuff. Like we would support some of the areas that were really busy, like in the East End,
Hmm.
Zone 5, where I started my career. We're always, I mean, I remember staying in roll call, backed up 14 gun calls,
Golly.
in that district. And you would just get in your car and you would run until your shift was over. So we would go out there and try to supplement some of their high risk calls. Would get detailed sometimes to other units to support them. Plus, we would patrol if we didn't have
Yeah.
anything else. I mean, we'd jump in our cars and we'd go out and we'd patrol. So, and then on the bomb side, I think I remember doing the stats. I would average anywhere from I'd say 20 to 30 calls a year on suspicious items. And out of those, I'd say 8 to 10 were actual devices.
Okay.
Most of them were pipe bombs, uh, some homemade explosives. Sometimes you'd see things like that. We did have some bank robberies at one time, but they were hoax devices. We've had a couple burglaries. We had a few actual IEDs. We had a bank robbery with an IED. So it was a mixed bag of things in those days. Uh,
Golly.
but you combine the two together, and then we ran river rescue. So you had an assignment at river rescue. We had boats all year. We had different vessels we would use. So there was a lot going on for a 25-man unit, and
Yeah.
you were busy,
And
you
it
know.
sounds like you even kind of came full circle there when you were working with the bomb squad and SWAT back in the District 5 that you started with.
Right.
That's kind of funny. You're the one talking to the local guys, and this is where I started. And
Right.
man, that's so. th- it's just so much. It's so far over my head, like IEDs and you were talking about the bank robbery with the explosive device. Is that some sort of, is it organized? The people that are
This was over in Southside at the Iron and Glass Bank. I don't think it's there anymore. We got the call. What happened was he was in line. There was an off-duty policeman in line too. He was off on because he was injured. Well, and this guy had an Amish costume on, right? He had the beard, the hat, and he had this bag. So he gets up there and he's okay. I'm going to rob his bank. I have a bomb in the bag, right?
like with a note? Did he give him a note or
So
something?
he's
Oh,
talking
he's
to him.
talking to him.
He's
Okay,
in the
gotcha.
bag, and I'm paraphrasing here. The police officer was standing behind. He sort of started overhearing this, so he tackles the dude, right? Puts the habeas corpus on him.
Yeah.
Police come, they haul him out. They call us because they look in the bag and there's something in there flashing with all kind of wires. So we get over there, and the dude's in the back of a police car that was robbing the bank. He was a drug addict. That's why he was
Okay.
doing
Yeah.
it. And so I'm talking to him, and it was hot. It was hot that day. Here's a little story. So I open the door, and I'm talking to him, and he's like, "I didn't know I was convicted already back here, sentenced to death by asphyxiation or whatever."
Right. Yeah.
I said, "Hey, bro, sorry. I don't know. I didn't put you here."
We'll crack the window for you a little bit.
Yeah, I said, "Hey, but I said to him, I said, "Hey, what do you have in there?" He told me what he did. He actually he goes, "I got a schematic in my pocket." And they had found it. And I said, "Yeah, they have it." And he goes, "That's exactly the way I built it. It was with, some chemicals and some other things and some black powder." And I said, "Okay." I said, "Because I'm in charge." I said, "I'm tasked with taking that apart." And I said, "If I go in there," I said, "and if I get hurt because you've lied to me," I said, "I'll be back to talk to you."
Yeah.
So he goes, "Officer, I'm telling you, that's exactly the way it's done. I'm a drug addict. I mean, I'm just trying." And I said, "I get it, bro." So we talked for a little bit. I was pretty confident he was telling the truth. He had the schematic in his pocket.
Sure.
So I went in and basically I separated the power sources. I went in, I disarmed it, and that was that. But that was a typical call on some of
Oh
those.
my
Like,
gosh.
um, we would go out of the city too. We had up in Clearfield County, we had a package left at a judge's chambers, which turned out to be a hoax. I won't get into it too much, but hoax, not a hoax, maybe more of a message. Uh, but and then we had another one. It's up in Potter County, I think, or we had a pipe bomb. There was a militia guy was arrested, a former SF guy, uh, and ATF had been running this case for a while. We were involved, and there was a couple pipe bombs left, and we had to go up there and take those out and apart and all that sort of thing. I think there was some grenades in there too, which is pretty easy to handle. So we would support outside the city as needed as well.
Yeah.
It was a good balance. It
Yeah,
really was.
I was going to say, because a lot of these smaller communities, they probably look to you a lot for help. Yeah.
Well, typically the smaller communities, the Allegheny County would support them.
Okay.
Allegheny County had a bomb squad. They have a bomb squad too.
Okay.
So, so it worked out pretty well. But we would support outside of Allegheny County. We would go handle calls as well. The county would too if they were asked.
Gotcha. Yeah. So then you made the transition to Homeland Security.
Yeah, well, I was just coming up on 11 years, I guess, getting into my 12th. And a friend of mine called who was actually the special agent in charge of ATF.
Okay.
And he had retired. And then since then, 9/11 happened and Department of Homeland Security stood up.
Hmm.
So he calls me and goes, "Hey, what are you doing?" I says, "Yeah, I'm, just doing the same. What do you want to do?" He says, "I want to have lunch." So we get together. He goes, "Hey, I got a new job. I'm one of the assistant special agents in charge of the Federal Air Marshal Service in the Pittsburgh field office." I said, "Oh, that's cool." He goes, "Hey, listen," he goes, "we have an explosive division and they're looking for 24 bomb technicians across the country. I wanted to see if you were interested." And I said, I don't know. I said, "Dan, I got it good, man. I was running the bomb squad at the time, senior SWAT guy. You know, I
Yeah.
mean, no one was bothering me,
Right.
And although I was going through a divorce at the time too, I think, and or getting ready to. And I don't know. And I didn't feel like moving. He goes, "Well, Pittsburgh's a field office and you would be working directly for me, not DC."
Hmm.
So we talked. I put in for it. I got it. So I was an explosive security specialist for the explosive division. My region was these areas around here. I had 7 airports. Our job basically was to combat any further attacks on aviation, maritime pipelines, or railroads. And we did that by we would liaison between the state and local tactical teams and bomb squads with the stakeholders in those industries if they would have an event, like if there was a bomb on a plane or an oil well or a nuclear power plant or a railroad. So we
Wow.
coordinated all of that. We would train these guys on how to work in those specific environments. We would be the investigators. We had clearances up to top secret, and we could take information out of the clearances and then get it to those guys. We'd have to maybe follow some procedural things, but
Sure.
we could get them the important stuff. It was a really cool job. And the
Yeah.
field office was right here, right in
So
Pittsburgh.
you didn't have to move.
No, I ended up moving because like I said, I got divorced,
Right.
but which literally where I live now is 2 miles from where I used to work. So maybe three. It may be three, but I think it's two. And people used to say, "Oh, you could run to work." I said, "Yeah, but I haven't yet."
Yeah.
So
I used to
we do
live
love it.
eh,
Yeah.
I used to live over in Bradford Woods over like it's 2.2 miles from my front door to my seat, my chair in my office, and I would, my dog comes to the office every day and I would walk him over and
Oh,
it seemed
nice.
like the only one that was sweaty and tired by the time we got to the office was me, but
The way it works, man.
yep. So then from Homeland Security, then what your next transition was that when you went overseas?
Yeah, yeah. So I was with Homeland, and they sort of changed the mission. They were sort of combining our mission with a mission that we helped develop called bomb appraisal officers at the airports. So that you have 24 of us out here and across the country. That's all there was of us. Now they were trying to just move us under this umbrella, and nobody really liked it. I didn't like it. I said, "I'm not going to go sit around in an airport all day," because
Mhm.
we supported each other nationally. I mean, I was working all over the country. Besides my area, I was responsible for. So I called some friends of mine and I said, "Hey, I knew there's government contracting, right?" And I said, "What's the contract world look like?" And they're like, "Come on over, bro, anytime you want." So I made some calls to the people that run the anti-terrorism assistance program uh, piece for
Mhm.
what our skill sets were, and basically, I just had to fill out some paperwork. I had to get my clearances moved, or apply for a new one if it required that. And now I'm a government contractor, and what that looks like is under the anti-terrorism program. There's probably 100 different disciplines that is trained. It's a training mission,
Mhm.
and there's only a handful of what we call hard skills. So hard skills are weapons, explosives, um, tactical, type things, hostage rescue. It's a hard skill. Defensive tactics is part of that. Um, so that was the areas that I worked in. I worked in the explosive countermeasures piece, the CQB, close quarters battle, which is more like a SWAT training,
Mhm.
post blast investigations, of course, and counterterrorism, some behavioral stuff. Uh, in what you do, you get assigned on a team. So basically, you get an email, or a call, and it's like, "Hey, we have a contract over in Jordan to train the Iraqis,
Mhm.
EOD team." let's say we're going to do explosive countermeasures work. Um, so the team leader would usually get the date and then he'd put it out and you just jump on. Hey, I'm available. Yep, I'm in. You go over there for 2 months, 3 months, and you do your op. We fly in and we train, equip, and mission support them, right? And then we leave.
Mhm.
And that's in I don't know how many. It's over in 100 some countries, I think. Uh, and then of course there's fraudulent document training, there's interview and interrogation training, all stuff that other people do, right?
Yeah.
Special border training, narcotics training. So in 2009, I left Homeland. I come home and said to Sue, I said, "Hey, I think I'm leaving my job." She goes, "What do you mean?" I said, "They want to move us to the airports." And I said, I'm not going to go over there and wait for luggage alarms to go off all day. I'm not doing it." So I said, I called some guys over to working in the State Department contract world, and man, we can get in there. So that's how I made the move. And it was tough at first, man. It was, you just don't. I mean, I was in the business long enough. People knew me, but you're breaking into a kind of a new level of work.
Right.
And so I certainly made the cut, but it's just now how often are you going to get to work because everybody's on a list.
Hmm.
So the early days, I mean, you'd make money, but it was tight. I mean, it
Yeah.
was tight, man. And I was like, man, did I make a mistake, jumping over here so quick? Because we got paid pretty good at Homeland. I mean, benefits, it was pretty secure,
Yeah.
But here it's a little bit of a huckster. So, but like I said, it was a couple of years. It was tough. I'd get a few contracts a year. Then after that, I actually got a team lead slot. So I had my own team. So now,
Oh,
now I
yeah.
now I got to work. It's my team. So, and we worked a lot in Jordan, South Africa. I had to do some needs assessments down in South America. It took me overseas. I mean, it takes you over the world. So continued to do that. And then I lived in Qatar for a year. I went over there for a year as an advisor,
Hmm.
and I left there. And I could have stayed longer, but I left there for some other contract work and with some other agencies. And then in 2018, well, 14 and 15, 13 and 14, I was in Afghanistan only for a few months at a time, back and forth. And then, like I said, I went to Qatar and then back to Jordan. And then in 18 is what Afghanistan was a resident contract where I was there 7 months a year.
Yeah.
Typically 3 months a year on and off. One rotation, I stayed full six. And that's sort of a Reader's Digest version, how that panned out to get to where I was over there. And unbeknownst, early days of this, I was building the Rolodex that I would use years later that I had no idea
Right.
I'd be, you know. So, Afghanistan was the last full, I mean, we were busy till the fall, of course,
Right.
the story. I was
Yeah.
stuck there when that happened. And now I'm still on. I ran a team in Jordan after that last a year and a half ago. I've been turning them down. I mean, they wanted me to go to Iraq a couple months ago, and I said I'm just too busy with
Right.
doing it.
Your next project.
Yeah, which has consumed our lives.
And so before we get to the Asservo project, because I'm excited to talk about the Asservo project. But when you were there, you were there for 6 months. Where are you staying? What's the kind of the cultural barriers? Was there, I'm sure, communication barriers, language
Mhm.
barriers, just
Yeah,
those.
each country's a little different. Like in Jordan, we had like billets. Like rooms were small.
Hmm.
My room, but your rooms were like 7 by 9. Community showers, things like that. Uh, so let me shut that off. Um, so a lot of them were sort of that type of situation where there were structures, I mean, but you had all the problems, hot water, no hot water, food was bad, I mean, food was good. I mean, so they were a mixed bag. Afghanistan, though, is a little bit more, it's a war zone, right? So you're not really going to
Yeah.
get any of
And
that.
you were there during the pullout in
Yeah.
2001.
Yeah. We lived in the Connex boxes, like big sea containers.
Yeah.
They make them up, they put a bathroom in them. You got a desk and a bed in there, and you kind of live in those, which sounds a little primitive, but I'll be honest with you, they were nice. My wife laughs at me. She's like, only you would like to live in a steel can. But I'm like, but it was
That's
it was it was not. I liked it, man. It was mine. It was,
yep. Well,
you
we've
know,
talked
you
about
had
that.
your gun locker in there. I mean, you had your own bathroom. That was huge.
Yeah.
And we had contracted, our mess hall, our dining hall. Our food was good. I mean, it
Yeah.
was, yeah. I mean, I loved it there. I mean, the people were good. The mission was great. I mean, and there was success there. I mean, a lot of people don't think there was, but there was a lot of success there. But that's kind of how it is, depending where you're at. Now,
Mhm.
I was over in Oman working, the hottest place I've ever been. If you want to know what hell's like, go to Muscat, Oman, and you'll get a little taste of it because it was like 130 degrees there.
Oh
And we're
my
out there.
gosh.
It got so hot there. We were training the Oman Royal Guard weapons. We were training them CQB, CRT. They call it critical response teams training. And we would have to take a break. The guns got so hot, like we had to keep swapping them out.
Yeah.
You needed gloves, otherwise you get burnt. But no, those places there, we stayed on the base. I mean, we had marble floor apartments where we stayed.
Yeah.
And it was funny. I roomed with two SEALs, two guys, and I was early days. We were starting the Asservo project, so after work, I'm working. I like took over a whole section of the living room, with my
Right.
computer. I had everything out, and we usually wrapped up by 2. We'd start at 4 in the morning because it just got too hot.
Yeah.
And those guys were laughing. I mean, we'd go back. I mean, you were spent for sure. And they were like, I said, well, come on, we can watch some TV. They're like, we didn't want to disturb you, man. You got like your little ops center over there, man.
Yeah.
We didn't bother you. And they were busting my stones, but it was good. I mean, the people were good there, so it looked a little different. There was pretty nice. I mean, it was a nice apartment, 3-bedroom apartment.
And so you were starting the Asservo project simultaneously while you're doing the contracting work.
Yeah, that's where it started.
Yeah. So let talk about really just kind of these eye-opening experiences. You're like, there's a need for this, and I'm gonna, if I'm gonna fill it.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, it started in 2016. I was in Jordan working, as a matter of fact, and some of my buddies I met over the years, this guy he hit me up. We were using Skype back then, and he calls me, he goes, "Hey, where you at?" And I said, "I'm in Jordan." And like I said, I've been to Jordan probably 20 times. We spent a lot of time there, and laughing. Where else would I be? And he had retired. He was a CIA case officer, and he retired about 10 years prior. We had worked together on some things. And he said, "Hey, and he started a nonprofit rescuing kidnapped American children," is how he started. And what that would look like is you'd have a foreign national, an American parent. They have some kids. Either it didn't work out or it was by design. They would take the kids illegally, then they leverage them for some money, or the
Mhm.
kids would find themselves in some pretty bad situations. So he would go and get them. Like he kind of knew all the ins and outs of international travel and all that, the intergovernmental
Mhm.
work. So he called me and says, "Man, we got three missing American children, and I think they're in South America." He says, "I can use you on the team." I said, "Hey," I said, "I'm here," and I remember I was another 4 or 5 weeks. I said, "I'm here for another month or a little longer." I said, "I'll call you when I get home, bro. Put me down." But since that phone call that night, I just started Googling kidnapped American kids. Now, I don't know why I did that night because when I lived in Qatar, he was there trying to get a family out, coincidentally.
Mm.
We weren't there for the same thing. I was there doing other things, and so that was a little weird even meeting up with him.
Yeah.
But so I knew he'd been doing this, and we'd known each other for years. And I told him, "Hey, you ever need a hand? Let me know, bro. I'll jump in." And when he called me, I just never looked into it. I was busy doing my thing, right? I'm
Right.
trying to get my State Department, like this contracting career going, and uh, I never looked at past the conversations. And that night, I don't know why, I just started digging into it. And for the next 8 months, I did this dive on this problem of kidnapped American kids. And what I started to uncover, which wasn't hard, I just had to look, was
Right.
human trafficking, child exploitation, organ harvesting, forced labor, sex trafficking. And I started looking at this huge behemoth of this information, and I was blown away at the scope of the problem. Like When I lived in Qatar, I seen the forced labor trafficking there. They work them to death, man, 16 hours a day. And it's hot there too. It gets a buck 30, buck 25.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I was over there for a year. And um, so I saw that part of it, and I knew the country. I did my, we get before we go, what's going on there. But I never knew it was to the scope of, like at the time, they were estimating almost 30 million people were sold into slavery every day. There was a $90 billion criminal enterprise globally. And I'm like, I didn't believe the data. And that's
Yeah.
why it took me 8 months. I'm going and coming, I'm going other places. I'm talking to Sue, my wife. I'm like, hey, boss called, look at this stuff. I can't believe this stuff is this big.
Yeah.
We just kind of went for 8 months looking at it, and I'm calling everybody I knew. I know a lot of police officers across the country, right? From the bomb squad and the SWAT team trainings. We got a pretty good network there. Federal agencies, other military guys I knew. And they're all telling me the same thing. They're like, Joe, it's probably bigger than what you're seeing, but nobody has the manpower or budgets to keep up. And really, nobody cares. And I said, what do you mean nobody cares? They're like, nobody cares because they don't really believe it's a problem. Like 90% of prostitution, these men and women are trafficked. They're forced to do that, where our society's kind of let it believe it's just kind of what they do to make a living. They fell in bad luck, or they're drug addicted. They really never peel back the layers to really see what's the root of the problem and why this thing keeps getting worse every year. And
Yeah.
I can give you an example. 27 million people then, 50 million people today,
Yeah.
estimated. They're saying now it's close to $200 billion generated. So, but that's how it started. It started in 2016. So after that, it got to be December, January, and I was talking to Sue, and I'm like, look, I don't think I can research this anymore than I
Right.
have. I said, either we got to get in it and do something or try to learn more. We got to make a decision. And I said, either I'll jump on with my buddies, when I'm home, or we start something on the East Coast. Because what I found was there wasn't a whole lot of organizations except for advocacy, which is important.
Sure.
Education, advocacy, and recovery, homes that have the trauma recovery. There was nobody trying to get to the root of the problem.
Mhm.
And I said, I don't know, maybe we start something here. And we never did a nonprofit. We never worked nonprofits before. Never. I mean, we have a small business. Sue, she's business oriented.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we started the Asservo project. And the name, as we started talking about it, I had a close group of friends around, and we're kind of passing ideas. And what we found out in those early days was nobody was talking about it. So
Hmm.
we thought we need a name that's going to start the conversation. And I was doing a consultant gig. I was in Helena, Montana, Helena, however you
Oh
pronounce
yeah.
it.
Yeah.
You ever been there?
No, not
Well,
was it Helena? Is that?
Helena, that's
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
Well,
I've never been to Helena, but I go to Montana every year. So
well, then
I
you know
want
what I'm about to say. We were there. I was doing some consulting for a bank, and I'm in my hotel room, and it had like 5 feet of snow,
to.
and it
Yeah.
was like 2 degrees, and the high for tomorrow was going to be like 9.
Yeah.
Sitting there thinking, who would live here? Like I can't. It
Probably
just
got dark at 3 p.m. or something.
Oh yeah, I was only out there a few days.
Yeah.
So and I'm doing notes, and I'm like, what can we do? Like, what can we call this organization to start this? And I'm just going over in my head, watching a hockey game. I'm in my room. I don't know, Caleb. It's something. It just says. I wonder if there's a Latin or Greek word that would be an attractive word that means rescue or to
Hmm.
protect. So I just started. I got up, started translate bunch of words: protect, rescue, watch over, overwatch. And a servo came up. It was a Greek and a Latin verb to mean rescue, overwatch, protect.
Yeah.
So I was like the Asservo project, and that's how we got the name.
That's awesome.
And it does it too. People say, "Hey, what's that?" I get it all the time.
Yeah.
There's my kid. There's
Yeah.
conversation starter. So
Absolutely. I mean, I saw it happen on Wednesday. Is that
yeah,
what? Yeah.
that's
When we
right.
were, yep.
Wednesday.
Yep.
Yep, just got his card, Nick. Yeah,
Yeah.
it,
He's a good guy. I
yeah.
had lunch with him. He's a good guy.
And
So
that's how it did it. So we incorporated in March of 2017.
yeah.
And
And
then
then it
we,
was right to work, right? I mean,
yeah,
what was next? So you
well, we incorporated. So we had the name, now we're getting this logo together too. And the church had some space available, unaltered it did. So, like, long story short, they offered us some space at like $500 a month. I'm like, sure.
that's where we started in a church gymnasium. So
Yep. We were
yep.
in the basement, but it was finished space.
Hmm.
So soon I went to work. We had a girl, Kristen, came on board full time. She was our only employee
Hmm.
to help us. So we started building the website. I just started building it like my government job. Like as I ran my teams, I start laying out, what do I want to build here?
Hmm.
What's the objective? Where's the need? What resources in my Rolodex do I have to fit that? Okay. Well, if that's a need and I don't have any resources, I might as well shelve that because I can't do anything right now.
Hmm.
And so we just start putting these pieces together. It took us a year and a half to build it out. Didn't really do any cases or leads in that time, maybe a couple because people knew what we were starting. We went out and got servers, donated, and then we would get those reconfigured. And, that was our first piece, was to get a cyber piece. We knew the kids were being targeted online. That was generally, we knew that's what we wanted to do, something there. Then the education piece came about because we would see more and more how bad these child predators were and how many there are. And
Yeah,
now with the internet, the scope and the access they have to our kids, Sue's like, we got to get to the schools. We got to get to the
100%.
schools. It's great you're out there hunting the predators, but we got to get to the schools because there's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of thousands of child predators out there. So now the education and awareness piece was born, our third or fourth year in. And then what I call now victim support or victim services are the centerpieces. Technically, the rescues. We have a safe house. We have a tip line. We can transport. We can buy a plane ticket. We can, all these little things we do in here. So it just started to sort of take shape. I won't say on its own, but just we constantly kept our eye on the ball.
Right.
I didn't I didn't get mission creep into other things, man. We kept the fence up. And even when there's funding for this, if you only did this, you could maybe get a lot of funding. Well, I don't do that.
Yeah. Yeah,
I
and
can't.
that's some kind of a mistake that we
Yeah,
made is when you're running a nonprofit is, oh, there's this grant, we could probably do that, but that's not necessarily our mission. And so being able to stay focused on the
yeah.
mission of the Asservo project. And it sounds like it was more of, what's in your wheelhouse and what needs can you fill? And so you're talking about the actual hands-on work, the educational piece. I mean, it sounds like those are each different programs underneath the Asservo project.
Hmm.
And I think, yeah. So can we talk about like just each kind of component for that? Because
Oh yeah, yeah. I
for
certainly I can break it down to you, but and they all didn't start right away.
yeah, right, right.
They were sort of like a shell, and I'm a grease board guy,
Yeah. Oh yeah.
because I can see it. And as we laid it out, it would sort of live itself which way we were going to start.
Mhm.
And I'd say by our third year, we were rocking. I mean, we
Right.
were second year, we were rocking pretty good, and then third year of at least the functionality of what we wanted to do.
Hmm.
Um, and and so as we build it, we got a board together. The boards, we've had a few come and go
Yep.
since we started. So I got a really good board. They're engaged.
Hmm.
Um, they all bring different skill sets, and they hold us to task. As you got a board. We
Yep.
work for them.
Yep.
We may have started it, but once it became a 501(c)(3), it ain't ours.
It's
Nor
right.
nor do we want it.
Right. Right.
It's just the way it is. So the cyber operations and investigative piece. I mean, if you want, we can sort of drill
Sure.
down what's part
Yeah.
of that.
Yeah.
So, after that 8 month, 9 month, now a couple years, we're realizing that investigations in cyber is a need
Hmm.
here. So we talked to a lot of law enforcement folks, and we were hearing from them like, listen, we got multiple cases on our desk, and we only got a couple detectives here. We have
Right.
no resources. So we come up with this idea. Look, as we'll generate our own leads, if we work the case and we hand you something that's really turnkey, that you could
Mhm.
really turn it around fairly quickly, would that be a help? Lot of agencies said absolutely.
Yeah.
Some agencies were like, no, all you're doing is putting more cases on my desk. Well, okay. Yeah, but
Right.
this one's going to be three-quarters worked. Now, I know
Right.
they got to start their own, but when you're getting a vetted information, but it was well received. And that's how we started that piece. So we would be online looking for predatory behavior. We would be collecting evidence of these predators trying to groom our kids, and there's crimes committed electronically when certain things occur,
Hmm.
especially with minors. And we understand the law, right? Because everybody in this cyber and investigations unit were former cops or military or
Hmm.
analysts, right? They've done analytical work.
Yeah.
And we understand the law, so we train them in what has to happen in this space. So they're in there and we build the case, and we've got predators up in New England. We caught a guy up there twice. And he got let out of jail, and then now he's going to stay in jail for 15 years. But it's
Yeah.
crazy. Nobody stays in jail anymore. But we've gotten predators in California, New England, Florida, uh, Wisconsin. We've had it's all over the country. It's wherever the lead takes us, because it's all online. So West Virginia, so we would hand these cases over to the law enforcement agencies that were jurisdiction, and that worked really well, and still does. I mean, since we started that model, technology's changed.
Hmm.
A lot of AI now, a lot of things that are catching, different things in there when we're trying to watch for them. But we've moved along with it. We've licensed. I think now we got 5 different softwares we license.
I was gonna say that it seems like such an evolving uh
Yeah.
industry where everything is changing so rapidly and being having to keep up with that. I have one of my best friends that I coach wrestling with. He does cyber intelligence as his day job, and a lot of it, like he was trying to explain the dark web to me, and or the
But yeah.
black whatever
Dark
it's
web.
dark web.
That's
Okay,
it.
yeah, and just I mean, he doesn't do the child, kind of child trafficking, and his is more as like protecting businesses from being hacked and things like that. But it was just it's so intriguing to me. But I don't know. So when the so your team, how do they? I mean, I assume that there's kind of um, when you're talking about like predatory behavior. All right, here's things that we're looking for. Here's spaces that these people would frequent. So we need to go in there, infiltrate that, and then basically start a dossier, start a report, and
Yeah.
follow
Yeah.
through this until we get it to a point where.
Sure, exactly. It's you got to understand. You think about these predators. Now we're talking to kids now. I mean, we
Mhm.
focus heavy on the kids, but we also help adults.
Mhm.
We'll go after their traffickers too.
Mhm.
Um, these predators. Where are the kids? When I say kids, I'm talking 18, 19 down to 9, 10, whoever's online, right?
Mhm.
Maybe even a lot younger. Well, they're on these gaming platforms. They're on these chat rooms and these different clubs, and different even dating sites to some degree. These kids, even though they're young, they get on these dating sites. So it's and that's where the predators are. So
Mhm.
that's the spaces we're in, right? We're in those platforms and looking for these people that are targeting our kids. And it's a crime of vulnerability and manipulation.
Mhm.
They are master manipulators, first of all, and they can identify the vulnerabilities. So they build these fake friendships and relationships in this world, right? Because they're talking. I mean, they might be playing on this game, Fortnite or whatever. You take it, bro. They're on all of them.
All right.
Months. Just, hey, yeah, Joe's my friend.
Right.
But then they start to know and they ask these innocuous questions of, hey, where's your parents work? Oh, mine work here, or my brothers, my sisters. And then, yeah, yeah, how was your day? They've been playing this game for a while. And horrible. My parents fighting. Maybe the traffickers or the predators laying out some bait, like seeing if this
Mhm.
kid's got a decent family.
Mhm.
Yeah, my parents fight all the time. My parents drink all the time, or my dad's never home, or my mom's never home, or they like my sister and hate me. They start to try to find out where the vulnerabilities are.
Mhm.
Can happen 100 different ways. Once they know that and the manipulation, friendship, then they start to get a picture exchanged because they're all doing it. I mean, parents, some of them argue with me. We go to the high schools. We spoke to 6,000 kids this year alone,
Yeah.
junior and senior high schools. 70 to 80% of the kids have already shared an explicit video or picture of themselves to their friends or a stranger. We
Mhm.
know it. That's the stat. So then this occurs. Now they have them, right? The sextortion starts, leveraging them either for money, more content, to meet up, all of the above,
Mhm.
and then they're stuck.
Mhm.
And I could tell you stories. We hear it from them when we go to the schools. We hear
Yeah.
it of how it happened. So we're in there trying to identify these predators because they're all fake profiles, right? We know that they're all lying who they are. Some are acting to be young guys or young girls. We just
Mhm.
had a case. We spoke at a school an hour and a half after our presentation ended. A boy went to the office and told him about him being sextorted online. So,
Yeah.
and here he thought it was a young girl, right? It was a 70-year-old guy.
Golly.
So it's crazy.
Yeah.
We see it all the time. So we're in there, and every predator that we can identify their true identity, location, and have the police arrest them and convict, it's estimated that that's about 75 to 100 kids will not be exploited by that one predator because they have them any profiles out there grooming these kids.
Mhm.
And we see it. We can see how many friends they have, right? How many. So if you take a predator down, you've just affected conservatively 75 to
Yeah.
100.
Yeah.
I don't know how many predators we've taken down. I mean, a year. I mean, we hand them to the cops or we know they've been arrested. Some are still in the pipeline. Sometimes the feds will take years if it's tapping into a network.
Mhm.
We're talking thousands of kids here, and we're small. I mean,
Yeah.
so that's why we focus on that really, really hard. Because once you've been trafficked and you're an adult, and a lot of it starts with the kids when they're young, or they
Mhm.
were even abused by their own families sometimes. This looks different in many ways. It's really hard for them to break free of that life.
Right.
I mean, it takes multiple times for them to get away because the dependency and the trauma they've experienced is so horrific. It just takes time, and that's what we have to give it. So that's why we focus on that, but we focus on it all.
Well, I think the education piece is so important because I and maybe I've heard it before, but what is today? Friday. So earlier this week, I think it was the first time I heard on mainstream media they were talking about uh, the thousands of kids, U.S. children that are kidnapped, and they don't know where
Hmm.
these kids are. And I uh, don't watch a whole lot of television, but I don't hear about that. So I think it's this educational piece is so important to get the word out to let, hey, these things are happening,
Yeah.
and there's people like Joe and the Asservo project or who are trying to combat it and to get the word. That's why I'm excited. I was excited to do this interview because I think people need to hear about it.
Yeah. Well, and that's what drove me. I mean,
Yeah.
it was, I'm telling you, God put a post-it note in my head that's still there. I couldn't get it out of my head.
Yeah.
I couldn't get it out of my head of what these people were doing to these adults, young adults, and these kids.
Mm-hmm.
And I still don't like it. And that's what started. I don't know. I just couldn't get out. I couldn't get out of its way. I mean, I wasn't looking to change my career with the government. I mean, it just happened. I mean,
Yeah.
and you know,
It seems
but
like every time you'd be like, I got this pretty good. I don't know if I want to go to the next thing.
all right,
And then that's what, that's where you're called and what you do.
sure. Well, and even now, you're starting to hear a little bit about it. But it's still the tip of the iceberg. I mean,
Hmm.
P. Diddy, we heard about P. Diddy 15 years ago before I was even doing this. That whole thug rap culture.
Yeah, we
But
have a friend that's our same contact that I've heard those things about, and now it's like for the first time you're like,
yeah,
oh,
it's
this
like no
is
surprise.
yeah.
Oh, Hollywood, that whole entertainment industry. I was out there. I did some things with some SEAL buddies of mine. Uh, they were doing a pilot, and I was the explosive guy for the set, doing these small charges. So we were out in LA filming it,
Hmm.
and man, the culture, I just didn't like it. I mean, and we went out, the guy the Navy SEAL, it was his company, and it was really cool stuff. It was like documentary stuff, but kind of cool about time periods of war and how warriors what they had. I mean, it was really a neat concept. So we were at it. I mean, let's go, man. Dinners are on me. We're working long days, and so you were mingling in these nice restaurants, and you'd see all these people, man. But there was an awe of it, uh, like I just didn't like it,
A little
and
slimy.
yeah,
Yeah.
and one buddy of mine, he had done a couple movies actually back in the day when he got out of SEALs and was living out there. He goes, "Oh, yeah, the culture out here, it's unbelievable. Like he just wouldn't. It's not like the East Coast, it's just different."
Yeah.
But it's now and even now you don't hear about it because on the demand side of either kids or buying sex from adults is in every aspect of society. So do people that are high influence people want that to stop? Probably not,
Right.
right? Or in power? Probably not. I mean, I go out there and I go to a lot of meetings, I'm out there flipping rocks every day and nobody reports on it.
Hmm.
Nobody reports on stuff. The media is complicit in some of it. I mean, locally they're really good with us, like Channel 2, Jessica Guay, Kim Gable.
Yeah.
I mean, they're champions of causes.
Right.
When I say media, I mean nationally. I'm
Oh
talking
yeah.
nationally, yeah, and cable news too. I mean, not just the networks. I don't know. I mean, it doesn't get the reporting it deserves. Um,
Do you think
but
there's gonna be a cultural shift to start going after that more
I
aggressively or
do,
okay.
I do, I 100% do. I do see some things turning. If we can get the demand locked down, like because a lot of people that just solicit prostitution, a lot of they're single guys. I mean, there's a ministry out there that targets that. We help
Mhm.
them. If they call them up and go, "Hey, I don't know if you understand this, but like 90% of prostitution, these women are being forced or men, It's about, and their answer, I said, "What did they say to you?" And he's like, they go, "I had no idea. Hey, man, I'm a single guy. I just thought
Right.
I was, buying sex." Some guys are like, "Nah, it's not my problem," and other guys just hang up on them. But they're out there trying to change the optic of the demand, which I think is really important. Um, so you have to hit it from a lot of different ways, and we'll talk some more ways we're doing it. But that's why, our cyber, and it's the advocacy. We try to get the word out there, and that's why we do these presentations in the schools, and we do them for parents and adults too.
Hmm.
And that all ties into to getting the word out there so they can start talking to their kids about it or their family members who may be in trouble. There's resources out there to help them get out.
Yeah. And it sounds like even just like you were saying, the last school you did was an
Yeah,
hour after the presentation. Somebody went to the uh
two kids did
two.
too.
Yeah.
Yep, and we've seen that. We've had kids come up to us saying, "Hey, I shared a picture with a stranger. They won't leave me alone." Uh, we hear it from them after our presentations. For the
Wow.
last years. So we know that education piece. We really want to grow that. That's we were talking the other night about grants and stuff.
Yeah.
I'm going to start trying to find some education. See, I don't know if we would qualify for that. I mean, we'd have to, I'm sure, put out some things, but it's important. We really see the need for that education. So we're trying to collapse on the problem, right? We're out here in the predators and this. Here we're educating, and then the middle piece is sort of the rescue piece,
Yeah.
maybe the movement, trying to get them out, support services.
Yeah.
You
Can we talk about that for a few minutes?
Yeah.
So how
Yeah,
does
we'll
that
go right in. Maybe
yeah.
let's do the education, then we'll
Sure.
final
Sure.
with that. So the education piece now, it took us probably over 2 years to get into schools. We would be reaching out, we'd have people reach out. If you know anybody, they didn't want it in there. They were worried about the backlash from the parents.
Mm,
We would develop a letter explaining the presentation. We developed the protocol would be, hey, we come show the superintendent or the principal or the administrators, whoever they are. They can pick and choose what videos they want to take out. So it's approved to what they want. We just kept ringing doorbells, knocking on
mhm.
doors, man. And we got in, I think Beaver County was the first schools we started to get into, the VOTEC. Then it was the high schools. Boom. And each year it got more and more and more to the point now we're speaking this year alone was over 5,000. So we got to be up to
Wow.
about eight or nine
Yeah.
thousand kids. We developed a survey that goes out automatically, electronically to the students, and it's anonymous. They could fill it out, so we could collect data on what they knew, are they
Right.
bothered, what did they learn. About 20% of the kids fill it out, which is pretty good for high school kids, you know.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and that I think that's getting better. We brought on new people. Brenda runs our education awareness section. We brought on some new presenters who are academic, teachers, career teachers, even in universities. So that thing is really growing, and we have net letters now that, we do the work for them that they can send home and opt out if they want. We help with that. So it's really, really growing, and it's no doubt making an impact on kids that don't even know that they were going to be victimized.
Right.
Or if they're in that situation now, they got the courage to go to the counselor.
That's
And if
what,
they
yeah,
get
that,
shut down, we tell them, if you get shut down, call us,
right.
call, and then we'll get you into the pipeline of where you need to be, with
Right.
with enforcement and all the advocacy for the child. So it's a huge part of who we are now, which in the beginning it was not even really thought of.
Yeah. Yeah.
So now we have those two, which I would say are the meat of what we do. Probably 60% here, 30% here, and then the other 10% um, it was what we used to call rescues, or now it's like victim services or support services,
Hmm.
where we've assist with transportation to the recovery facilities, where they're typically a year or two programs. It's a year or two long programs. Um, we have a safe housing. We can house for 2 to 3 days and provide whatever's needed there, food, medicines, whatever you need. Um, and we can also facilitate large movements with airline tickets, or we have a network of pilots that we just got introduced to. They formed their own network, that pilots own their own planes, and they'll fly the individuals to where they need to
Wow.
be. Because the trauma is so bad in their early days of escaping this. Man, a 9 hour ride in a car with a couple of strangers ain't the best.
Right.
Although we do it and it goes fine. We stop for dinner. It's
Sure.
really make it a good trip as best you can. Now there's potentially the resources you can make that into a 3 hour trip, right?
Right.
So we're constantly building our toolbox there.
Yeah.
We have legislative folks in our corner in Harrisburg. If there's legal things we need to discuss, we have attorneys on our staff. One of my board members is an attorney.
Mhm.
She's awesome, and she's in family law, so we can help there. We've paid a semester of tuition for a girl in community college. It felt that they just left her fall between the cracks.
Yeah.
What else? I mean, you name it, we've done it. I mean,
Right.
we've supported some other local organizations that are in the same mission as us. With one that helps kids, they needed some bedding and beds and pajamas, and we'll support them. We've helped the recovery organization locally. They're our partners. I mean, we're honored to be able to help them. In this. So we do all of that. We help with background checks with a couple other organizations for
Hmm.
their volunteers, because we do backgrounds on anybody that works in our organization. We do pretty in-depth backgrounds. Um, so we do those as well if we can help them. Um, I'm probably forgetting some things too, but we're needs based. If we can do it, we'll do it.
Yep.
I mean, we made trips to the border. I was at the border last February. Um, I went down with some of my former colleagues, I'll say, uh, and we were down there trying to see if we could find the rat lines where they're bringing all these kids across. Now they're estimating 300,000 plus. When we were there, they were estimating 90, which we thought that number was low for what we saw. The encampments on the ranches we were on with the abuse, the blood. I mean, I didn't even know if somebody survived that abuse.
Oh,
So we keep in touch with the real trends out there too. We don't carry guns, we don't kick indoors, but I myself might embed myself in with some other team guys, you
hmm.
know, where maybe we got to be in kit. if we're going down by the border, right?
Right.
That's not a servo. That's Joe doing his thing. But it gets the servo poised to have a seat of what we can do,
Hmm.
from an education piece, a victim service piece, or a cyber piece if we need to go track some of these people or try to find some people. Um, that's how we get seats at the table.
Yeah.
And I have other friends that'll do that for us. I don't always have to be the guy.
Right.
Um, so, and that victim service piece can look, we've, law enforcement has helped us go out and talk to the kids. Like a lot of parents call us, they find on their kids' phones these videos and pictures of themselves sharing them with their friends, and they're mortified.
Hmm.
I mean, Homeland Security is really good. They jump on things pretty good, uh, and it just works well.
Well,
It's really developed and working well.
and it sounds like the parents are more over the last few years open to, like you were saying when you first started this, the parents like, I don't know if we want our, hearing
Yeah,
that,
right.
and now there's just so much evidence about how needed it is. Like you were saying, what the 70 per 60, 70%. And just sounds like there's just so much need that sounds like the schools are being, when you started with Votech and then in high schools and then growing and growing, and sounds like there's a lot,
Yeah.
maybe that the culture's shifting a little bit. And I hope it is.
I think it is. I mean, we even spoke at colleges, Penn
Yeah.
State. I spoke at Seton Hill College a few weeks ago. Um, so we're actually in the universities now too, and it's starting. Hey, it's a slow burn, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But we can see the traction, and sometimes you get a little blip, man. It's like, wow, we really made some strides here, and it's you never know who you're talking to, and it's really an important piece to get into those kids and even the universities. We've had cases where they're groomed out of universities.
Yeah.
So, and that's the thing, like with the parents and not my kid, man, I get it. But if you tell me that there's not a vulnerability in everybody's life, and I had
Mhm.
when I was down the border, the guy that was the ranch manager, I mean, we were talking, and I told him, I said, everybody's got a price. Like we knew these people were paying. They had oil people working on the roads there's 7,000 acres, and we're like, they're paying them off to get off your property once they cross the border.
Mhm.
And then there's mules out on the main road. We would see tractor trailers out there, and so he's like, yeah, I know. I said, but listen, everybody's got a price. He goes, I don't. And well, I think you do. And they're pretty rough people down there. And he had a son, and I said, what if it took your son?
Mhm.
There's your price. They take one of my kids. There's my price. What do you need me to do? I mean, I'm going to do it.
Yeah.
I'm gonna come find you once I get my kid back. But I mean, really think of it. I mean, we all probably have something we love or cherish that can be held against us.
Yeah.
Uh, so that's part of the problem is once they get that, man, they got them. They
Right.
got them. And sometimes, as horrific as it is for some of these people, it's a better life than maybe where they were found.
Mhm.
We've seen that. I've talked to survivors who survived on the streets with oral sex and just trying to get McDonald's. And, so somebody actually giving her a home to live in and new clothes and was at least making sure they were fed than her having to do that on her own, sleeping in streets. So I've heard it all. It's amazing what these folks have lived through. Um, and once you hear their story, if you're not empowered by their story, I mean,
Right.
I don't understand. I try to understand, but you hear them talk and man, how much you don't know and how much more work you need to do to help them. What do they
Yeah.
want? What do they think is needed? Then you trying to figure it out because they'll tell you what's
Right.
needed. You have to listen.
Wow.
Yeah. So, and then you have the fundraising piece, and then you have the business piece,
Yeah.
and
The
you're probably
the
doing it, getting
joys
ready,
of
getting ready,
the nonprofit world. Yeah.
getting ready for tax season because that's way more complicated than it is. At least for us, it is. I mean, but it's good. I mean, and the relationships are the important thing. I mean,
Mhm.
that's what we try to build relationships. We don't try to. We do networking, but for us, for people, because the needs there's always a financial need. I don't even talk about financial needs to most people. They know you need money
Right.
unless they ask like, hey, I want to help. And then you know they're serious. They might have some means
Right.
of a business or something. But the advocacy piece too, I mean, is just getting us into the schools, getting us into the parents, host something at your church, getting the word out to people that this is a problem and this tech is only getting more complicated and more high tech. And the parents that are like in their 50s and 40s, they're the ones struggle with it
Mhm.
because they didn't grow up with it. You
Right.
know,
Right.
your parents in the 30s and early 40s, maybe, but so you're at a loss already. And we've seen cases where the kids, they know how to hide the apps underneath other apps.
Mhm.
You won't find them on their phone. You could be inspecting their phone. Okay, looks good. Meanwhile, they have a ton of apps underneath, like the calculator app. It's a
Mhm.
fake app and that's designed to store stuff underneath. These are
Wow.
13-year-olds. We had a case, I'll say a friend of mine, because I don't want to say
Sure.
his son, he has a son for him to buy, games on his phone. He has to bring his phone to his dad. He unlocks the
Right.
pet,
Puts the code in or whatever.
unlocks it, gives it back to his kid. He downloads the games, then he locks the phone and he's good to go.
Hmm.
So he's checking his credit card bill and he's like, man, I don't remember him buying this many games. And he's checking it so he calls him. He says, hey, how are you loading all these games? I don't remember you. So he came clean with his dad. He goes, well, Dad, 13. He said, before I gave you the phone, I turned on screen recording.
Oh
So when
my
his dad did the
God.
thing and gave it back to him and he loaded it, he goes, that way I could load the games when I wanted without telling you. He goes, well,
That's, you know what? That's that reminds me, I did Big Brothers Big Sisters when I was in college. And so if we, I'd pick my little up and we'd be going to do something. He'd want to play games on my phone. And I'd give him like while I was driving, all right, you can play games on my
yeah.
phone. Well, the one day I was dropping him off, he had changed my password on my phone. And I drove home before I realized. So now I'm at home, my phone's locked because he changed my password. And I went back,
Oh,
that what you're talking about is the next level, like screen recording to get back in there. That is something.
yeah. He was like, I'm like, when he's 18, we're giving him a job application, brother.
Yeah,
You know?
yeah, he's resourceful, I suppose.
Yeah, man. Get him right in the intel piece.
Yeah.
But they are, and that's a good. They're resourceful, man, and like I mean, when we were younger, we were invincible, man. No one's, I mean,
Mhm.
you don't worry about stuff. And now I think it's starting to change. But they estimate at any given time there's over 500,000 predators online. Any given time,
Yeah.
the whole tech piece is feeding this the most. During COVID, the pornography sites had a 14,000% increase hits.
Wow.
So the demand, so all this online is really when it exploded. And then you have the videos of these kids, like they talk these kids in, or a lot of it, they're abused in their own homes. And they video this, and then on the dark web down there, they're sold and they're downloaded. And that's millions and billions of dollars in that market where these kids are being abused. There's some really horrific things on the dark web. I mean, there's
Yeah.
some live stream things of rapes and murder. I don't know about murders, but abuse. There's things that can be sold down there, drugs, guns. There's organ harvesting. I've seen the menus. It's like a menu. You buy a heart, buy a lung. So now there's that piece of it that's really difficult to work because it's really hard to identify anybody there, right? It's
Mhm.
blockchain technology, so it's very secure. Um, we have presence in there, but I don't, I can't even talk of what we do there because that's in the cyber world and I manage it. I know what's going on there, but I don't talk too much about it. Um, so we try to hit it everywhere we can. I mean, to,
Mhm.
to hold these people accountable. And we have friends in Harrisburg. We're trying to get laws changed. Like, I think the laws need to be way stricter. Like that dude they just pardoned that was selling those
Oh,
kids for cash.
that's
Like,
where that's why I heard about when I was saying that was the first time I heard on the mainstream media about all the
yeah,
number of kids that were they were talking about that guy that just got pardoned.
crazy. Like, Like, how is that allowed? Because the family was on, the kid killed himself. I mean, the dude sent him to jail, and he shouldn't have been sent to jail, you know. Um, but there's even worse atrocities. The whole P. Diddy thing, and hopefully some of that comes out. I mean, Epstein, you know, Maxwell, she groomed girls in high school for him. So there's women involved in this too, because they're more trusting, aren't they, to
Hmm.
most people than men sometimes when you're young. So he gets her to do it. Um, and these networks, an average trafficker, you know, can make $150,000 on, let's say, one female for sex trafficking, roughly 150K, and that's not hard. So they have 3 to 5. So you're upwards of 3/4 of a mil to a mil cash business selling sex.
Hmm.
So the demand has to change, right? The awareness on the demand side has to change, because if you didn't have the demand, you wouldn't have quite this problem. Um, that's never going to go away. We know that, but we can maybe curb it, maybe
Yeah.
educate folks. But then you have the whole child predator piece, which is billions of dollars. What we've realized in the last couple of years is how prevalent the child predator piece is. It's everywhere. They live among us.
Hmm.
Uh, and it's just a tough thing to put your head around. Like, I don't get it, but it is a very lucrative piece of the business, so to speak.
Hmm.
So that's what drives the two predator and education pieces, is what I mentioned before. Um, and in 6 months we'll probably be talking about another tradecraft we developed.
Right.
I know for a fact we are, because we're working on one, but to make a difference, to get these people off the streets, to hold these people accountable.
Hmm.
Um, that's a big piece too. So we're growing. I mean, we probably got 15 staff. Some are part-time paid, some aren't paid, but they're really taking a pretty significant role.
Yeah.
Stipends, some are part-time, and we're growing. That's our thing now, is we're just now, like you and I've talked,
Yep.
it's growing pains of a business. I got to go out there and find more revenue, right? Whether
Yep.
it's grants or funding or philanthropy or companies or donors. I mean, we
Yep.
we have all of those. I mean, so we just keep the gas tank filled, and we can make a bigger impact there. And one of our biggest projects in the future, if we we're sort of doing an exploratory, is we need a home for kids, because they're falling between the foster care, the social service care. I mean, some great foster parents out there, but there's also some that aren't.
Hmm.
And there's just a need, I think, for a residence, education, therapy, counseling, to get them ready and be adopted,
Hmm.
adopted, and also stay with them, in high school, college, job placement, sort of like the Milton Hershey School.
Hmm.
Uh, but we'll see. There's some people interested maybe in that. So we're never on our heels. I mean, we're always out there. Like, what's next?
Right.
What are we doing? What can we do and be doing better? Every quarter we're looking at things, trying to identify where we could be better
Right.
at that.
Keep pushing the ball, moving the ball
Keep pushing
forward.
it. I mean,
Yeah.
these are we take it serious. I mean, Sue runs a really lean machine here. She's very she's very detailed. You
Oh
know her.
yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah.
And it's important. These some of these
We.
people are friends. Some of them I don't know. They're donating a lot of money,
Yeah.
and it's important. And it's our first responsibility is to the kids and the victims, and identify these predators. Right.
Hmm.
Equal with that is how we do that with these people's finances. I mean, they
Hmm.
entrust us with that, and that's why we go to the lengths we do on our reviews and our audits, and how we put the money toward the programs. And it's a
Absolutely.
lot of work. Like
Absolutely.
you got the mission, then you got the job, right? And then you got the
Yep.
business, you
Yep.
know?
Yep.
So, but we've been blessed meeting great people, and like you guys. I mean, if it wasn't for you guys, I mean, I'd still be in bad shape, man. I mean, I was working, I wasn't dying that long, but my productivity was like, what would take me an hour a day to do was taking me like 3.5 hours, because of the
Yeah.
pain and
Yeah.
just healing too. The surgery was pretty brutal.
Hmm.
So it was like, my days were 12, 14 hours to get done what I used to get done in 6 or 7, or 8. And
Right.
but all that meeting with you guys was, I think, part of the spiritual piece of it too. Is we knew it's spiritual warfare. We had a lot of people in Asservo being death in the family, illnesses after illnesses, kids getting hurt, you
Mhm.
know, financial maybe. I mean, it was crazy how many people in our circle, and but we had a lot of people praying for us, and we just kept pushing it, and here we are. You know, everybody's here,
That's right.
and that's how we approach it. I mean, it's it's resilience and faith, to be
Yep.
honest. I mean, you know, I mean, I'm not probably going to do much more contracting. You know, I might do a little bit just to make up for, a couple medical bills maybe and keep my connections going.
Sure.
But I mean, this is where it's at. I mean, for us, it's every day,
Yep.
and we're blessed to be a part of it. We're blessed to be here with it,
Yeah.
to be honest. I mean, I wasn't looking to do it, but here we are, and this is where the focus is.
Well, and you guys are doing a great job, and we need the light, and you guys are providing it. And how can people reach out to you? Like, what if they want to get involved, they want to support you guys? What's the best way to get a hold of you?
Yeah. Well, they can go on our website is probably the easiest, and they'll see a contact page on there.
Mhm.
And I think the email is info@theasservoproject.org. That's the website, www.theasservoproject.org, ASSERVO. Um, and you can fill out a little page of who you are, what you're interested in, if you want to volunteer or if you want to donate, or if you have questions, you can say, want to meet you, talk to you more about your organization. We can set up a meeting or a Zoom call. If you want to donate, there's obviously a donate button on the website. You can certainly do. But like I said before, we'd like to know you too,
Yep.
get to know your heart. Um, but that's how you'd set up a meeting there, or you could email me directly. It's J Sweeney, SWEENEY, at theaservoproject.org. Um, but yeah, the contact page, I get all those. So just fill that out saying you want to connect up, and just put your information there. I'll give you a call. Um, skills, I mean, we're always looking for people with some skills. Um, I don't need people that maybe think we carry guns and stuff. I've had that, and it's not a dig against them. They think we're rescuing, kicking in doors. We don't do that.
Mhm.
More analytical. If you ever worked in intelligence,
Mhm.
cyber analytics and intelligence, we're always looking for folks to help that program out. Jeremy runs that. I'll get you in contact with him. We have an investigations team, if that's your thing. If you maybe were a former detective, uh, we're always looking for help there. Um, and just, hey, host an event. Get us in your churches. Get
Yeah.
us in the Rotary clubs. Get us in your communities. We have a tip line. Make sure you look at the tip line. If you need help, call the tip line. If you don't want to say who you are, we understand, but we really can't help you unless we have a conversation. But
Mhm.
there's a tip line there you can share with your friends or family if you think you need that resource for them. Um, get us into schools, all that stuff. So yeah, just start the conversation with us and we'd be happy to see where it takes it.
Absolutely. And if you guys need a place to meet, you can have our conference room.
There we go.
You're already there.
Hey, yeah, since it's closer to New Year, if you got a New Year's resolution, I'm going to tell you to bring it, but you better bring it because you ain't going to leave without it working.
That's right.
Hey, I don't know if you were there today. I brought two of my grandsons in, and
Today.
no, a couple months ago.
Oh, okay.
And one's a boxer. He actually just fought in Virginia. He got eliminated first round, but he was fighting with a broken thumb. But I brought Gavin, and Grayson was a football player, pretty good. He's
Yeah.
12. Well, your dad put him through, like he spent them.
Oh my
Like,
gosh.
oh yeah, I was like, and Grayson, man, the kid, he's really athletic, but he's still thin.
Yeah. Yeah.
Gavin's all muscle. I mean, he's boxing, he's been working out, lifting, but he's a little older. He's 14. He was dogging him, and then Grayson did the wall. He completed the wall crawl at
Yep.
the end,
Yeah.
and he
Yeah.
was all pumped up. And we left there, and they were getting frustrated because he was, Gavin, the boxer. He's like, he had him doing push-ups on the basketball, and he was getting frustrated.
Yep.
He's like, I can do 50 regular. I said, he didn't ask you to do regular, did he?
Right.
And your dad, it was water off his back. He's like, I don't want to hear it. Keep going. It
That's
was.
that's like that's what my dad loves that. He was at we have actually a guy that's helping me with grants, doing an internship with me. His son, he brought his son in. to work out with my dad, and he told me the next day, he's like, my son was so sore, he didn't go to school. He's like, and he tried the next day to say he was still too sore, and Roger's like, get your butt to school. But I saw Roger and his son; they were back last night, getting after it. So
Oh, they loved it. They liked it. That's a pretty good workout, boys. They went, yeah. I said,
yeah,
yeah, you got to be careful complaining. I did it once to your dad. I have a torn rotator in the shoulder, and I had a surgery on this one, but not this one. And he has me doing those flies, man, and I couldn't get the range. He's like, you need to get more range. And I'm like,
yeah,
yeah, I'm trying. I say, yeah, I got this torn rotator, man. I can't get the range. He goes, yeah, I got one of them too. Come here, let me show you what you got to do.
yeah. He's like, feel,
It was like,
yeah.
I said, no, never again. He's like, yeah, I don't care what you got.
I thought I pulled my hamstring one time, and he's like, "Wow, is it black and blue?" And I'm like, not really." He's like, "Oh no, like if he's like telling me this story about where his entire from like his glute down to his knee was just like black and all this, and he was,
I've seen those.
and they were having him, do whatever, and I'm like, all right, I don't feel so bad anymore. I guess I can go to, I can
Right.
coach high school wrestling.
You know it. Hey, that's right. And it's a good thing. I mean, I was kind of raised that way, a little older. I mean, not that young people aren't, but it's kind of good. I mean, it's good to have a balance there. And look, like even in this job, you got to push yourself. I mean, we go out. We're speaking at least a couple nights a week sometimes. Not
Right.
every some nights, it's 3 nights, 4 nights. And then we got the networking. You're trying to build the connections, people that need help. And I mean, I don't feel like going out to those things. I'm like, I don't feel like going.
I know.
But we got to go, man. And I do enjoy them. I do enjoy meeting the people and building and growing the advocacy piece of this. And, seeing you guys is great. And you build camaraderie with some folks there, but you got to keep going. And that's the things those are reminders. Like, yeah, you got to keep going. Your
Yeah.
shoulder hurts. You got to keep going, bro. You're not going to get better.
And I think I told you this too. It only takes one, it only takes one. You never know. And I think I told you, like, we got a large grant from the Allegheny Foundation, and I got connected with the Allegheny Foundation because I went and did a presentation to the Treesdale Rotary Club. And if I didn't do that, I wouldn't have got connected, so I try to do
Right.
the same thing. Like, all right, I'll go anywhere I'm invited to. It only takes one. You never know. And that's what keeps you
Sure.
going.
Hey, that's why I really like your mission too. I mean, it's not only how you've helped me, it's just I actually knew a couple of the guys that were there, right?
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
I
Yep.
knew two of the guys. I know Jason and I know Brian.
Yep.
Oh, and Kelly's husband I met. And and that's a motivator too. I
Hmm.
mean, early days, man, it was some dark times. I was like, man, I just didn't think the surgery worked. And I was told there's people don't survive it, and I'm like, man, I hope I'm not checking that box.
Hmm.
But then I start coming to your facility and then I look around and I'm like, embarrassed that I'm even complaining. Embarrassed. I'm like,
Hmm.
man, how do you even get in that space when all you got to do is come here? Just look around. Look around and go, I could be in that position there.
Right.
So all of it, and that's kind of how I've always lived my life, more so as an adult, and like when I say adult after 45, you know, is it really things I look at things with an optic out here. I try to, because if you look in optics in here, man, you could really make some bad decisions. You got to take a step back and go, yeah, here's the blessings, put up with it. Nobody cares, work harder, really. I
Yeah.
mean, until you're over there, like you're that incapacitated,
Right.
sick. So I try to apply that in every aspect, whether it's
Hmm.
raising the kids, the grandkids for sure, the boys, I'm on them, and even in the servo, it's tough managing volunteers when they're not getting paid, but I have a bar, and if
Right.
stuff's not done when I want it done, we got to talk. And it's
Right.
not that we have this talk. It's like, what do you need from me to make it happen?
Right.
Because the cyber unit, we support it. It takes a lot of money to support those guys and
Hmm.
girls. We got and women there too, who do phenomenal work. So I always look at it like, okay, if it's not getting done, then it's my fault. Like if that mistake happened, then what did I do? Why didn't I see that before it happened?
Right.
That's how I try to hold myself. Now, although there's plenty of blame, although by God's grace, we haven't made that many missteps at all in the business, like the operation stuff. It's because of what we've all done for years. But so we try to stay focused and make sure that everybody has what they need, but they're held accountable too, because we can't promise these resources if we can't deliver.
Right.
And that's kind of how we try to keep the focus on it.
I love it.
But it comes from groups like yours and your dad's, right? Even the networking people we meet, the schools. I mean, even the parents, like we'll have parents come up to us afterwards. They'll share a story how they were abused as a child,
Mm.
and then they broke the chain, and they really didn't tell anybody about it. They got on with their life, and we're strangers to them, but they just want to, they feel the connection, and they're like, hey, I just want to tell you, man, you're right on this, but here's what happened to me. Maybe you might experience this with some other kids. I want to tell you about this. And we get that 30-40% of the time.
Yeah.
I've had meetings with people that have shared stories, and we even have people who work here. So so we have a really good informed group around,
Mhm.
and that we try to bring that to the survivors as well, in the middle victim service piece, survivor piece, we should call it, because they are survivors. I mean, they don't
Yeah.
like to be called victims, and I understand why, because that once they're over here, man, they're on that side of taking charge,
Right.
and it's good stuff, you know.
Yeah. Well, Joe, thank you. I appreciate your time and sharing all about not only the Asservo project, but kind of your story. And
Yeah.
again, folks, if you want to volunteer, donate, learn more, go to theasservoproject.org or .com.
.org.
All right. All right.
.org, yeah.
So, folks, if you want to learn more and donate or volunteer, go to theasservoproject.org. And that's all for today. Thank you for watching and listening. If you'd like more information on Center for Victory, visit our website at www.centerforvictory.com. And remember, wherever you're at, whatever you're doing, make this your best day yet, and we'll see you next time.